All right, today's demonstration is how to make mozzarella cheese in 30 minutes or less. Today is March 28th, and we actually have a gallon of milk that was best by March 21st, but we did a little taste test, and it's still doing fine, but it's going to go bad in the next few days, I'm sure. So we have to turn it into something else, and that's going to be cheese. Now, this gallon of milk might yield about a pound of mozzarella. So when you do the math at buying the stuff at the store, you don't really save much money, but it's kind of fun to do things from scratch. All right, some ingredients that are specialized to this has to do with some citric acid, which is going to acidify the milk. This is also the way in which you would make ricotta cheese. So we're taking 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid, and we're going to add about 1/4 cup of cool water into that. Now I'm wanting to use bottled water so I can make sure that I don't have any chlorine or any fluoride in the water, which could interfere with cheese making. So I'm going to dissolve that pretty well and pour that in, and then add some heat to the milk. So we can put the flame on high. I'm going to start heating this up, coming out of the fridge, probably about 40 degrees or less. We're going to add that in at about 55 degrees. Now while it's starting to heat up, there's another special ingredient that we have that is a little bit hard to come by, and that is rennet. Now there's a product in the store called junket that's used for making ice cream an old-fashioned way. That is not the same. This whole experience may not turn out, however, because this rennet is several years old, and it's not going to go bad. It's just an enzyme that may have lost its potency. All right, so it says it's 1/8 teaspoon for 2 gallons of milk, and so in the past that would be 1/16 for a gallon, but in the past we've gone away with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drops, and the same thing that we're going to use some cool water to dissolve that. This won't get added till later. All right, for our milk, we want this to start heating up. We've gone a little bit beyond 55, but we're going to go ahead and pour in the citric acid. And then to make sure that all the citric acid gone in, I can take the milk up, swirl it in, and pour it out. Okay, and so at about 88, we might start seeing some curds, like small flakes, with some of the protein coagulating. Okay, and it's at that point that we're going to be adding the rennet. Now, one thing about our milk, this is whole milk, okay, so 3.5% butter fat. And it's just regular pasteurized milk. It's not very common in America, but we want to avoid ultra pasteurized milk because though that makes the milk more shelf stable, that heating will affect the proteins that they won't be able to come back together for making cheese. Okay, so we're about at the 88 range, and now it's time to add in our rennet, and the same thing, and pour that in, lift some up to make sure it's all dissolved, and at around 100 degrees we should be seeing some curds forming, and if it's not the case, then I'm going to be adding some more. Alright, so turn the heat down, medium-low, making sure that I'm distributing that rennet throughout, kind of lifting and pouring with my skimmer. I'm seeing small little amounts of curds coming together. And it may not show on the video, but this is starting to thicken up, kind of more like oatmeal, say, cream of wheat. Okay, and now we can try to zoom in. You can see that we're actually getting more curds coming together, and my temperature is in the high 90s, 98, 99, and it was predicted that it would be at about 100 degrees Fahrenheit that we'd see significant curds coming together. And when all these cheese curds come together, it's going to be separating from a liquid that's known as the whey, W-H-E-Y. Okay, so little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet eating her curds and underneath the whey. But that whey itself still has some flavor in it for sure and some other purposes, and I'm going to actually save it to use for making the dough for the pizza. Okay, add a little tang to other bread and nutrients. The whey that is going to be left behind is also the process by which people will take these curds and dunk them into a warm liquid in order to get them soft, to do some stretching and forming. And we're actually going to be using a microwave, but we just don't throw this liquid out until we're sure that we have no use for it. Alright, so you definitely should be able to see a lot more cheese curds that have separated. Okay, and checking our temperature. It's in the low 105s. It's Archie, or Labradoodle, barking off camera. We don't give him cheese, it gives him abdominal problems. Alright, we're good at 110. So I'm actually going to turn off the camera. I'm going to let these hang out for about 15-20 minutes in the whey. Alright, we're back after letting our curds rest for about 10 minutes. We're joined by our trusty 11-year-old prep cook who's going to be doing some kneading coming up. So I like to let these hang out for a good 10 to 15 minutes, get a chance to firm up, more easily separate away from the whey. Using a skimmer, something that has holes in it to drain this off. And then this is going to get stretched together after it's being heated. So I'm not so worried about how much liquid's in here. I mean, there's going to be some, but the more that you heat this up, the more the cheese curds will come together to be kneaded, and you can always drain that off after the fact. Okay, so to the left of this, we have a countertop that's been cleaned for where the cheese is going to be kneaded. And we have some kosher salt nearby. And we usually put in about a teaspoon of salt. You could add more or less, obviously, once you do a batch. But I don't add that until later on because of the fact that if it's in the liquid, until this is all incorporated, it's just going to fall out as the liquid separates. So it's going to be about a minute. Heat this up, strain it off. May not come together yet. Then 30-second bursts, and it's usually after about the second burst of 30 seconds that I start to add in the salt. Okay, so try not to lose any of the curds. We're getting rid of quite a bit of that excess liquid. This isn't our usual tool for draining off the cheese, but we are improvising. All right, one more skim around the top. Alright, so I don't know if the camera's doing justice, but there is a little bit of cheese still floating in there. And that would be something that you could continue to heat and acidify to make a little bit of ricotta. We don't have that much left over. This is just 1 gallon batch, but when you're making this in bulk, it probably generates more. Alright, 1 minute in the microwave and we'll be back. Alright, this is after the first 1 minute of microwaving. And you can see that this is starting to come together a little bit more, but certainly different difference between the curds and more of the whey. So it's not time to knead that, but now I'm going to pour it back into the pot, squeeze it down a little bit more, and then I know it's necessarily not time to knead it because when I pull it up, the curds aren't really coming together the way that we're expecting. So it's a little bit flaky still. Okay, so we have gloves on, touching the cheese. Keep our hands out of the food, but also the fact that this is going to get warm. The ideal temperature for the water, they say, is about 180 degrees. And so the microwave is going to get the cheese warm enough what would recreate 180 degrees. But yeah, you can actually see, you can stretch this a little bit. It's starting to hold together a bit. Okay, so 30 more seconds in the microwave and we'll be back. All right, so now it's time for the 11-year-old prep chef. So he wants to take and grab out a good handful of that cheese. Get a sense for how warm it is. Okay, grab some up like this, right? And then we're going to squeeze it to get some of the moisture out and kind of fold it over itself. And when you do that, like it comes together like this, we're going to set it on the plate off to the side, and we'll bring those together at the end. So as he's squeezing that, do you feel that there's liquid leaving from that? It's a little too warm? All right, you take a break from one. Okay, can you dip underneath? No, dip out. You gonna finish? You want me to finish?
You finished.
Okay, well, step back, please. This liquid's the warmest, so if we get the cheese curds out, we can get rid of all this liquid that now separated back in the pot. And now this can go back in here, and this may not be so hard to handle, or hot to handle. So, you can flatten this out. You see how this is still crumbly? Yeah? Still crumbly? We're coming together a little bit like taffy. So, we're going to go one more time in the microwave at 30, and then when it comes out, I am going to salt it, and it's time to start folding it in. All right, another 30 seconds in the microwave. I'll put this down on the counter, and now it's time, oops, we spilled that, to salt this. So about half of it, and fold it in. The other half, and fold that in, flip it, salting that, folding it over itself, salting that, folding it over itself, gonna dab that off the counter. All right, so assistant, you're gonna come in, it's not as warm as before, and fold that over. Okay, flatten it out, fold it over, you'll see it start to get more like taffy. Yeah. Is it getting stretchier? Let's see. Give that a pull, see if it's stretchy. Yeah? Good. Okay. So, you see how this got a little texture on it? We want it to be smooth, the whole thing. Okay? So for right now, without putting your fingers in your mouth, have a taste of that. You want to try? All right, this is a little shiny. It's actually come together well. So I'm going to give it a quick little blast in the microwave and then shape it to what I want it to be. So usually we're going 30 seconds, now it's going to be like 15. We actually lost a little bit more liquid from that, so that's a good sign. I can get poured out. Now it's definitely shiny right away. Okay, this is the start of what people would take off shreds and add cream to it, make a pouch of this, fill it up to try to make a burrata, which I've never done, but I'm good with this. So off camera, need to have a bowl of some ice water to quickly chill this down. I'll wrap this in saran wrap and use it up in the next day or two. All right, and that is our 30-minute or less mozzarella cheese. All right, last thing, we took out 1 cup of liquid to start pizza dough of the whey, and that would probably bring the liquid up to here. So I have a whole gallon of milk, probably up to about here, was all liquid whey. The rest of it has been turned into mozzarella cheese. 8 pounds for a gallon of milk. I usually yield about 1 pound of cheese.